So here's the thing that no one wants you to know. Excellent service can save a bad meal, but an excellent meal can be ruined by bad service. We think it's time that the front of the house got the spotlight they deserve. Welcome to Dine and Dish, where the business of dining meets the art of hospitality. We are back for another week of Dine and Dish. I'm Michele DeMeo, also known as the Restaurant Diva, and time is flying by. And we, believe it or not, get Stevio back on the show for a second time. Steve, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Good to talk to you again.
Well,
Sound like
we're
you
excited to have
today.
Steve on, and today we're actually going to talk about things that he actually enjoys. Right, Steve?
It depends on the day.
I know, right? When we're talking about tech and hospitality and POS and everything systems, that's Stevio's realm, unless it's Gennaro calling him or me calling him when we can't get it to work. But today's show should be very exciting. We're going to talk about hospitality and tech. Is it helpful? Is it hurtful? QR codes, robots and automation in the kitchen and contactless ordering and payments. So there's so many things that we can talk about with technology and trends and everything going on in 2025. But before we get there, Steve, can you believe it's almost Thanksgiving?
It feels like yesterday it was January. We were starting a new year, and it's just in restaurants it flies by because you never stop moving, and you blink, and it's the end of the year again.
I know. I can't even believe it. I think when I was talking to Vivi, she was counting the days down and she's like, Mom, I think there's 46 days till Christmas. And I was like,
She would, she would
46
be,
days.
she would be counting those down.
I don't know if she's counting down for Christmas or counting down for presents. We haven't figured out yet. But before we end the show today, though, I'm going to ask you what you're thankful for. So maybe you could put that in the back of your mind and start thinking about that. But let's jump right into the show since we don't have a lot of time and these shows fly by so fast. And I really want to talk about all the different technology trends that are going on right now. But, let's start and talk a little bit about COVID because COVID has changed the way everybody thinks. I mean, before COVID, there was in person meetings, there was face to face meetings, office time, and COVID hit and everything became about Zoom and techie and FaceTime and less table touches, less face to face. And what do you think about that, Steve? I mean, what the whole I mean, you're a techie guy, so tell me what your thoughts are on how tech has changed in the last few years.
I mean, it made us pause, like, with, luckily in Maryland and, with our restaurants, I mean, we weren't down for long, but we, all restaurants and the industry had to figure out new and creative ways to, stay in business, stay afloat, stay open. People still needed to eat and, our employees still needed to work. So, I mean, COVID, it, put the challenge on everyone to figure out how we were going to get through this.
Exactly.
And on our end, luckily, like we, everyone came together, and as far as with a, the one godsend that came out of third party ordering and third party online ordering and all that stuff was the ability to still serve people, social distance. We were able to still operate and get everybody fed, and
Yeah.
I
Well, the other thing you have to think about too, we talk about post COVID, but rehiring and restaffing after COVID was also very difficult for a lot of restaurants. So, labor shortages and different things going on in the industry definitely fueled tech solutions as well. So, everybody shifted towards Zoom. Zoom became, I mean, that was like even my 6-year-old knows, oh, mom, I have to, her tutor during the week is not even face to face anymore. She's actually on a Zoom call. My 6-year-old knows how to work Zoom better than I do.
yeah.
So these labor shortages and what we were seeing in different restaurants and different offices and the slow start of getting everybody back into work definitely fueled these tech solutions.
And that's where we started seeing a lot of like QR codes come into play with like menus being a bit like, because everything had to be sanitized and wiped down. And, people started, like, we started using QR codes for all of our menus, so people didn't physically have to touch a menu with the risk of like transmission of COVID.
Yeah.
Ordering over your phone through QR codes, and that's where a lot of the tech came, where a lot of that came from.
Yeah. Well, you talk to some restaurants and they love them. You talk to other restaurants, they hate them. I'm sure fast casual definitely, when you talk about fast casual, QR codes are definitely much more effective and efficient than dealing with table side. When you start dealing with QR codes at full service, you lose the whole human touch. You lose the whole guest experience. You get to the difference between whether it's efficiency with tech or if it's guest experience tech. And the con with the QR code is obviously you miss the human interaction, the accessibility. I mean, older diners at Tuscan Prime, when we used to have the QR codes on the table, the older diners said to us, and I'm going to put myself in the older diner code, so we're not talking about, true age, but your older generations are not as techie. So then you're starting to figure it out. I mean, think about Gennaro, Steve, trying to figure out how to use a QR code. He has a hard enough time paying for a ticket out of a parking garage. Wait, I got to tell you a funny story. Let's digress for a second. So we're in Hoboken, and we're done. We just had dinner in Weehawken, and obviously, everything is all self-generated. There's no person to pay the ticket. So it's probably 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. We go to get out. We're in line to pay the ticket. And Jannar is putting the ticket in. He's scanning his card. Now the line behind us is actually growing. It started with 2 cars, then it was 8 cars. He couldn't get the card to work. Then he has the card in, and the thing is just spinning, like the little hourglass thing that's spinning, spinning, spinning. Alana's in the back sending me texts of videos laughing like, the line's getting longer, Mom. What's going on? And it's just spinning. And now the guy calls Gennaro back, and the two of them are talking. And Gennaro's talking to a guy that speaks broken English. Gennaro speaks broken English. The two of them are saying, what? We had a server at Tuscan Prime, and they put the mobile device down on the table for the guest to pay. And talking about cons regarding the QR codes, they work great for fast casual, but for full service, it can be a nightmare. And the guest went and put their credit card information to pay their bill, and for some reason it didn't save. And by law you can't save the credit card information. And now you have you have a guest that walked out thinking they paid the bill, and you have a server now coming running in saying, what do I do?
Yeah.
So what do you do in that instance?
I mean, the QR codes on paying the bill, I think, is the worst thing to ever do. Because I mean, on the flip side of that, I remember one table where they did pay, but we didn't know that. We just saw them get up and leave, and we went running out the door trying to stop them. Like, hey, wait a second, you didn't pay for your bill, blah blah blah. I'm like, there's so much unknown about it, and they're the worst thing ever for paying for bills. So I digress on that.
Yeah.
Like you can't save the credit card, and if like it declines, or it was like partially, it's only authorized for a partial amount, then it definitely creates a uncomfortable situation with the guests, especially if you have to get up and go after them.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of restaurants are using these QR codes. I mean, we had dinner. We were coming back from New York on Sunday, and we stopped at Texas Roadhouse on the highway just to have a salad and a burger. And, the first thing I said to the server, I'm like, can we get the check? And she was like, oh, no, you pay at the table. The machine's sitting on the table. And I was like, okay, great. Do I need an education to pay the check? And, it was really easy and seamless to check out, but here you go. Here's the pro, obviously, is the guest now expects speed and it's convenience. And when we're done, you pay and you get up. But the con is, you miss that whole interaction. So, at other restaurants where you give that great service and that table touch and, that extra whatever, go the length of the service, if you say, then it's a bigger tip for the server. So I don't know if it's good or bad, whether you use those QR codes.
So separating out QR codes from like a paid table device, like with that we like what we have with Toast, for, like what we had at the Annapolis location.
Yeah.
As far as the QR codes are concerned, the only time I've ever seen where I was happy with the way it was implemented was when the one time I went to the Guinness Brewery in Baltimore. They had the QR codes on all the tables because it was more of a, you know, it was more of a social environment. It really wasn't based around the experience and like waiters, waitresses, and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
the QR code, you scan it and you order like on your own through the like kind of like their in-store online ordering, and then they just bring the food or they bring the beers or they bring everything to the table. But you open it up with a card on file, and when you were done, you just clicked pay, you finished up, and you left. So it depends on the environment of where it can apply. That's like the only time I've ever seen it where I was happy with how it acted.
Yeah, it's almost like when you deal with a bar, when you open up a tab.
Yeah.
So you go to a bar, they take your credit card, you start a tab. So this way you have a backup and then it's easy to check out at the end. I guess that goes into the whole mobile wallet piece too.
Yeah.
You know, you have Apple Pay, Google Pay, Tap to Pay. There's so many different ways to pay these days. Everything but cash, because we live in a cashless society and everything is, you know, AI, techie, mobile wallet. So I don't know. I mean, are we reducing speed? Are we reducing human touch? I mean, there's so many different ways to look at it. Is it good? Is it bad? You know,
It
I
all
guess
depends on the circumstances and the environment, what kind of restaurant you're in, and how it's being applied.
yeah. I mean, look, some restaurants today, I mean, even Whole Foods, they're doing facial recognition.
Or the palm print, like they've got those palm scanners, like
Yeah.
with Amazon. It's crazy. I'm like,
I mean, that's weird. You know, it makes me think about like Star Trek and all those. What are the shows where you used to watch Star Trek or the Galactica, whatever it is, where they had the hands to open the doors?
yeah.
I went to pay at Whole Foods and I was like, I looked at the lady. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? Put my hand on it? And she's like, well, I don't know. Did you sign up for hand scan? And I'm like, hand scan?
Well,
I'm thinking to myself, okay, now my hand can pay the bill. You know what I mean?
Fingerprints are. I mean, they're. It's like you know, it's biometrics. It's
Biometrics, yeah.
it's your. I mean, your fingerprints are yours, and I don't know. I'm fine with like, you know, like for the permits and licenses for the restaurants and all that stuff, getting fingerprinted and stuff for that. But I'm not sure if I want Amazon to have my biometrics.
I know. It's scary.
I mean,
Well, we're almost getting into
that's a
that
whole
whole
other conversation. That's a whole other like.
Oh yeah, you mean like putting a chip in your head or your chip in your neck or how you chip the dog to make sure they don't run away? I feel like you start getting into biometric and facial recognition and hand recognition and all these different things. It's like you're putting a chip in your body. Now, you want Amazon to follow everything you do? Like Bezos doesn't own half the world. Now he needs to own your head.
I was about to say they know more about us than we know, and like they know enough. But I'm not going to hand that information to them. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
No
like
way.
Alexa doesn't listen to you 24/7.
Yeah. As soon as you have a conversation with somebody, and 5 minutes later, Facebook's got it up as a recommended sponsored ad on your phone. It's
crazy. I mean, we walk into my daughter's room and she loves Alexa. She talks to Alexa like Alexa's her best friend. And she walks in the room and I watch the ring as it's almost scary. You walk in the room and the ring just starts spinning like, I hear you. It's like, okay.
I switched everything that I had over to Google. Like it's not any better, but it's like the amount of times and it's like the data collection. It's supposedly less than Amazon.
Steve, Google listens too.
Oh, I know. I don't doubt that whatsoever. But
yeah. So let's talk about handheld ordering devices because, you know, we actually switched to them. So at one point we only had the actual screens, right? So we had the iPad looking screens at every restaurant, whether it was fast casual, full service. And then we decided to add the handhelds because we wanted them for the bar. It was easier to check out. It was a little bit more accurate. So this way, especially for credit cards, you weren't taking the guest credit card and running to a station. It was, you know, they're at the table, we're not touching their credit card. But, you know, I felt that a lot of the servers and the bartenders started using it almost like a crutch more than, you know, just a checkout type of handheld. You know what I mean?
I was happy with how we executed it with Tuscan Prime. And there's one server in my mind, which I'll mention in a second, that comes to mind when we talk about this. Mm-hmm. You know, the handhelds are, you know, they're great for a tool. But you know, as soon as the servers, like I go to some places like like there's the Ram's Head brand, like there's one near my house, and some of the servers, when you sit outside, they all use a handheld, fine, but when the whole time they're standing at the table, they're staring at the tablet. They're not looking at you. They're not interacting.
No
They're
eye
not, they're
contact.
not upselling. They're not part of your experience. Like they're just standing there as an order taker, which, in some environments that's fine.
Right.
There's definitely a disconnect where, if you're going to a place for service, and like the Rams that I go to, I love it because all the bartenders know who we are. They talk to us. It's an experience that just destroys it. And
Yeah.
what we did was, what I liked is, it was there. We had the one server, Rory. He 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 was
I laugh whenever we mention Rory.
he was so connected to his tables, and then he kept the pay at table device on his wrist. The moment he walked away, he'd flip it around, he'd put the orders in, he'd call for the bread, call for water, put in the drinks on his way to go greet the next table. He was so efficient with using it. I'm like, no, we don't want it to be around the tables, but what you're doing is perfect because you're still interacting with the guests and you're being efficient, you're getting things done, and your time management is amazing.
Yeah.
So,
well, and you know what? That goes back to training. That goes back to the general manager. It goes back to training. I mean, handhelds are great devices. I mean, look, all technology is amazing if it's used the right way.
Yeah.
If you use it as a crutch, then, of course, then there's issues and there's complaints. But if you're using it as a tool to be effective and efficient, then of course it's good. It's a good piece. That's why we have technology, because it makes things smoother. It makes faster ordering, fewer mistakes. The biggest thing though, like you said with Rory, it's using it and being engaged. As long as you stay engaged with the guest and you're having a conversation and you're elevating hospitality and you're doing all the things that we talk about on a level of service and hospitality, then these items are amazing. They make your job easier. They make the whole process easier, and it cuts down on mistakes. That's the whole reason restaurants started switching to handheld ordering devices. So this way, a lot of servers go to the table, and what do they try to do? They try to memorize the entire order. And there's only a few servers that I've seen in our history of opening restaurants and running restaurants that truly knew how to take a order by memory for 6 or more guests. There was only a few good ones. Many of them forget, and then they come back to the table and they're like, remind me how you wanted that steak cooked, or remind me what salad dressing you wanted. So using the handhelds, cut down on that and made the whole ordering process seamless. So that's a training tool. Handhelds should be used as a tool, not a shield. They should be used as a tool, not a crutch. So as long as, they're being done and used the right way, then all these things we're going to talk about are great for any restaurant.
Yeah. And I mean the handhelds too at the end of the experience, and when you're ready to check out, like it saves with having to go back and forth from the table. So you drop off the check as soon as they're happy with it. They put the card down. You bring the device over. You put the card in. You run it right there. And we had a little bit of an issue at the beginning too. I don't know if you remember or not, but people would, like, the server would put in the card, and they'd hold the device in front of the guest while they're choosing the tip and they're signing and all that stuff. And
that makes it uncomfortable for the guest too, though. You know what I mean?
So, it's like once you run the card and you make sure that it is approved, then you just put the device down, you walk away, and then they can finish up on their own, and then you come back for it and you continue on. But, it's great to be, it's number one, as far as a business solution is concerned, where PCI credit card compliance, tip present, the card never left the table. It's, you can, you're in compliance with all the PCI regulations now. But then if you have to split a check or, change something, or you forgot to comp something off, it can all happen right there at the table. And there's not all this back and forth wasting time. It's efficient at the end there too.
Well, that kind of leads right into everything is becoming more efficient with AI. I mean, AI is going to take over the world. I mean, at some point, AI is going to replace human completely. It's just so smart. And all the POS systems, everything is AI powered these days, whether it's point of sale systems, it's inventory, demand forecasting. I mean, there's so many different ways you can use AI in the restaurant industry. So, when we talk about tables and POS, how about even just reservation platforms? Yeah. One of the things that we talked about many times with Resi and OpenTable, the amount of times the system would reach out to the guest. So, you talk about, okay, did the guests love them or do they hate them? I remember with Resi, it was so smart based on how we sat people. It would know how long they were seated. You can put when they got their food, when they got up. It knew when to text the next table to come in and how long the waits were. And it was unbelievable how the whole automated communication system works. So, all these technology trends and all these different tools are out there to make your hospitality restaurant side easier, but how is it hurting the guest?
Yeah, I mean, like you were mentioning Resi and stuff. Well, actually, before I answer that, just before I forget,
Yeah.
there was one quote recently I heard, which is the best thing I've ever heard regarding AI.
Yeah.
It was actually something Jerry Seinfeld said in an interview not that long ago. He said, "We're smart enough to invent AI. We're dumb enough to need it, and so stupid we can't figure out if we did the right thing."
Right.
Because the way
It's true.
it's invading itself, it's integrating itself in every way, shape, of our lives now. It's just people are trying to put it where it might not be needed, and it's just still trying to figure out where it applies and where it doesn't, where we need it, where we don't.
Well, it's almost like that movie. I don't know if you remember, but it was that drug that it made her smarter and smarter and smarter to the
Lucy,
point where,
Lucy,
do you remember
yeah,
Lucy?
yeah,
And it's almost like it grows out of control.
yeah,
It just kept growing. And then she was so smart to the point where she was smarter than her own good. And, are we doing the same thing with AI? Are we creating a giant monster? Are we creating another Lucy? Maybe we should call it Lucy.
hopefully we won't get to the level of Terminator, but
Exactly. Exactly. So go back to what I was talking about in regards to the whole AI wait list and, are the guests enjoying it? Do guests love them? Do they hate them? I mean, go back to Resi and Open Table. I mean, the amount of automated communication that happens is crazy. Multiple texts. Your table's ready. It's not ready. Are you coming? Are you not coming? Confirm one, confirm yes. Even at the doctor's offices, everybody's using it these days.
yeah. And like with a lot of the texting features that are out now, a lot of them are like if and then or statements, which are kind of basic in programming. Like if this happens, then do this. Like when
Yeah.
if the person doesn't confirm their appointment, then a day before resend out a confirmation, or they did confirm 30 minutes before, send them the parking instructions. It's not necessarily a bad thing to keep people on track to what they need to do. But
Yeah.
as soon as AI gets involved, where it starts creatively thinking of new solutions and problem solving and some of that stuff, that it's that's why a lot of times when you use like Gemini and all those AI platforms, they're like, we can make bad decisions, check our work, because they may start going in the whole direction where they shouldn't be, or people using them for like school
Well,
projects and
Well,
essays.
Steve, I use AI all the time. I mean, I love it. We use it to help with social media. We use it to help with even information for the podcast, or we're trying to look things up. I mean, it's such a great tool if it's used the right way.
Yeah,
It's,
as a baseline to what we need to accomplish, then you still go in and we have to still go in, like tweak and edit it to match what we need to do for our concepts and our brands or our tasks.
of course. Well, you don't want to lose the human element.
Yeah,
That's where you go back to the balance of AI powered systems and human training the AI powered systems. If you're just going to use the AI powered system as the end all be all,
yeah,
then, that's the demise because there has to be somebody training it and teaching it and giving it the rules and regulations and what you want to see.
yeah,
So, I mean, that even goes back to like we're talking about in regards to coming up with a system that helps the restaurant in terms of ordering, a smart system. So this way it takes the ability to have a human make a mistake or order too much or not count something in. And, so we're looking at all different ways. And I mean, even back of the house these days are using AI powered systems.
yeah.
When we talk about, intelligent kitchen management and we're adding kitchen display systems and replacing paper tickets with actual, like, the bump boards, like we've tested. So
Screens, yeah.
yeah, I mean, we're using. I think the whole world at some point is going to use AI.
Yeah. I mean, as far as kitchens are concerned and like restaurants and stuff like that, I mean, I feel like there is a huge opportunity for, any restaurant to adapt that into their systems because, as far as like, let's just say, ordering, like, a manager might forget, oh, there's a holiday next week. We got to bump up our orders. We got to bump up, for the additional sales. And like, if it has if it looks back to see what your trends are with your sales, and it says, oh, this holiday last year you guys went up 30%, you got to go and up your purchasing. So
Yeah.
it looks at some of that stuff, and it doesn't execute that the order on your behalf, because you still need to approve, hey, you're going to spend $5,000 this week in food purchasing, or whatever the dollar amount is. It can't make that decision on your behalf. It needs to guide you in that direction, and you execute the order. But I mean, a lot of those tools are there to help make sure that you have what you need, and you have a successful whatever week or business or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Uh,
So taking it back full service, and for full circle, this whole show is all about hospitality and service.
yeah,
So when you look at techie stuff, and I'm going to just call it techie because it all goes into one bucket, whether it's AI, tech, blockchain, voice activated ordering, whatever it is, ghost kitchens, there's so many different things that's going on these days. The main thing that we need to focus on, that hospitality is hospitality, service is service. Sales are emotional. They're not transactional. Yes, everything is a transaction. You click the register, you swipe the credit card, you Apple Pay, tap, whatever it is. But hospitality is an emotional sale. You're going in, or you can make dinner at home all the time. Go to the grocery store and make yourself dinner. The reason people go out to eat, the reason people go to restaurants, the reason people go to bars is they're looking for a human connection. They're looking for that emotional sale. Technology removes that. It removes the connection. It makes it cold. And hospitality needs to have a human touch, regardless of what tool you use.
yeah.
Right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and like when I go out to eat, like unless I'm going to a restaurant I've never been to before, um, you know, I always choose restaurants I've been to where I've had a good experience. I mean, I like more of like the back and forth banter, like the bartender environment, like a little bit more of a casual experience. So like when unless I'm going to a new restaurant, I always go back to a restaurant where I've had that good experience. And it's a I don't sit there and you know mind my own business and say don't talk to me. Like I'm going out because I want to talk to people, I want to interact. And as soon
Yeah.
as restaurants forget about that and they don't put as much effort into the experience, then I mean, I know at least for me, I'm lost, I'm done.
Yeah. Well, then you get into Google ratings and Yelp ratings. And that was our whole other show. Do people like it or do they hate it? Technology should never replace the smile. Technology should never replace, I always say, that amazing hello to the fond farewell. You want to welcome them. You still want the warmth of the dining experience. People are there to make memories. We talk about it all the time. Restaurants are about building memories, building moments. You can't make a memory, you can't make a moment if you have a screen in your face. You have to be able to limit screens.
Yep, agreed.
At some point, you got to put the screen down and say, enough is enough. And, as a restaurateur, we need to make sure that we train that, we teach that. Every restaurateur tries to find something to make more money, to make profits higher, to streamline their systems, to make everything effective and efficient. I'm using all these buzzwords that every business wants. But at the end of the day, hospitality and service is what really brings success. And I say it all the time. You want a successful restaurant, put somebody up there with the hostess with the mostest. Somebody that has the gift of gab, that makes you feel welcome, that gives you that warmth hello, and really delivers that 5-star experience and that service that people want for their memories. And I agree. I agree.
Yep. Technology should never replace that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, we kind of have to wrap it up because once again, we're rounding out that 30 minutes because time goes so fast when we're shooting off all this information and we start telling stories. But at the beginning of the podcast, I told you to think about what your Thanksgiving message would be to our listeners and to yourself and what you're thankful for. So, would you want to share a few words with us?
So, besides every morning waking up being thankful for a very strong cup of coffee from, or a cup of espresso,
I was going to say, which
um,
one, your first or your fifth? How
this
many,
morning
how
was
many strong coffee?
three. This morning was three double shots.
So
Uh,
bad.
I know. I go back and forth, but a lot's happened since I've been here in Maryland, and like I've been here almost like 20 years now. Jesus. You know, all in all, I'm thankful for like my life and the environment that I'm in, for giving me the opportunities to learn and grow and better myself. And I say that I never want to settle. I don't want to get stagnant. Like I always want to do new things and push myself. And going back as far as I can remember, I've always tried to jump at opportunities presented to learn or push myself and go to the next level. And, a lot of people don't have those opportunities. So I am very grateful for that.
Like being on a reality show, doing a podcast.
Yes. Everything leads back to work, some way, shape, or form. But I should say career at this point. I know. But he grew up in the restaurant industry too, so he definitely that's the second thing I'm thankful for. He understands that, and not a lot of people would, and he definitely gets the restaurant industry and the hours and managing restaurants and all that stuff. So,
Well, but you said something interesting, and we talked about it before. I don't know how many times. You know what? We started this whole podcast off with tech making it easier or not, and we've had the most challenges today filming this podcast. We've had to disconnect and reconnect. How many times? 6 times. So I don't remember what we said and what we didn't say. But one of the things, Gennaro and I are actually going to do the next show. With Thanksgiving right around the corner, him and I are going to do the Thanksgiving show, and we're going to talk about what we're thankful for. I mean, 20 years working together, side by side, living together, working together. I don't know if I should be congratulated or have condolences, but you know what? We've made it through, and we've made a successful life together. And, I wrote down a few things that I'm thankful for that I want to share with everybody. And obviously we'll get into more Thanksgiving messages at our next show, but I wrote down inspiration, meaningful, warm, heartfelt, and family, and of course our incredible team. And I wrote those things down because that's what surrounds me every single day. I'm thankful that we have the opportunity to pause and breathe and acknowledge every blessing that we do have by being inspirational to the people around us, by being meaningful in everything that we do. We strive to be good people. We try to raise our kids to be good people. And of course, our incredible team and community that support and surround Gennaro on a regular basis and every single day, that support Squisito and support Vivi's. And, and we're really excited to be able to share our concepts and our food and our family with everybody around us. So those are just a few things that I wrote down. And like I said, next week, we're going to really get into our Thanksgiving show and bring Gennaro onto the podcast.
Yeah. And you guys are Thanksgiving, you're going up to New York for family, right?
Yeah.
Or are you guys hosting here?
Well, every year I got to be in New York City. So
Black Friday.
Black Friday shopping in New York City. I'm the only crazy. Actually, you know what? We started the show off talking about COVID, and I spent Thanksgiving COVID. I was, I think, the only one in Saks and Bergdorf's. It was the strangest thing ever to walk through Saks and not be packed. But every Thanksgiving, my sister-in-law does it, and we go up and we spend the week, and I'm with family all week long. And then we do Black Friday in the city, and we do all the fun, the Rockefeller Center, and we go to American Girl, and I get my Saks ornament, and I do the same spiel every year. And then I do Christmas. So this is my time, and I'm so excited. And Steve, thank you for your patience for our podcast platform crashing 19 times. But everybody,
the listeners don't know, because we do really good at editing. But
that's another skill that you're thankful for. I pushed you into being a producer and an editor. So, but that's another episode of Dine and Dish. Our DMs are open. We'd love to hear from you. Please follow us on Instagram. You can email me at Restaurant Diva on our website or through Dine and Dish. And that's another wrap, Steve. We're done another week until we get Gennaro on this mic.
Well, that'll be an interesting call.
All right, everybody. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. the message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.